Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Weights and Wealth. I'm your host, Nick, along with my amazing co-host, Ted, over here. And today we'll be talking a little bit about student loans as well as periodizing your lifting program.
And your diet.
And your diet as well.
Yeah.
Student loans have recently become, or they've always been a very mainstream topic, but particularly recently with Biden pushing this student loan forgiveness.
Yeah, but before the midterms, that was a big thing. And I'm sure we'll continue to see it kind of go back and forth as elected officials keep trying to promise it while judges keep ruling it unconstitutional.
Right. So if it does happen, I really don't see it happening anytime soon. And I really don't see it happening at all. So I wouldn't be banking on it.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think you should base your budget or financial decisions off of not having to pay that money back.
Yeah, it's just...
It's really crazy, though, how the cost of education has increased. Because I used to go with my grandpa in the morning to go get bagels for the rest of the family, because my grandpa and I were the first two people awake in the house. And we would go out to Fall River up in Massachusetts and go get the bagels for everyone. And we would drive past these like abandoned textile mills or factories. And my papa would say, that was where I went to college for electrical engineering. And I remember him telling me about the cost, and it was like $500 a semester with like books included. So they were able to work a job on the side and pay for college essentially. And then I think the cost has just absolutely exploded once the government got involved in student loans. I think that happens in every industry that the government gets involved in. The price just starts to skyrocket because no one's really accountable, I guess, for paying. And so many more people are given access to that service, which can be a good thing or could be a bad thing because it makes it less affordable, even though more people are somehow able to afford it through these loans. It's an interesting kind of paradox, I guess.
Right. And now the U.S. has racked up a debt well over $1 trillion in just student loans.
Just in student loans?
Yeah.
Wow.
And just because this money is so easily accessible, all it really takes out is filling out a FAFSA form. And a lot of people don't really know what they're getting into with student loans. It's just something a lot of people do.
When you're 18, you do not understand like what you're getting yourself into.
You don't have a concept of really how much money you're borrowing. You know, if you're borrowing $40,000 a year to go to college, you don't really think about it too much. You just think you have to go to college.
It's crazy that if you wanted that loan to start a business, like there's no way you would get a loan like that as an 18-year-old to start a business, but go to college and a lot of people will hold onto that debt for a long, long time, but they'll still give you that loan. It's just kind of very strange when you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are still paying their student loans off 20, 30 years after graduating.
Yeah, and if you go bankrupt, the loans don't leave. You still have that debt. It's the only debt that follows you wherever you go.
Right. Yeah, it's virtually impossible to get rid of it through bankruptcy.
Yeah.
So I'll be talking a little bit about how to avoid student loans from the get-go. One way is to choose the right college. You know, a lot of colleges are $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 even for the more prestigious schools. And you can choose a college and get a very equal education for a fraction of the price. You know, you can go to a state school where
we went to University of Dayton, which is a private school, but I personally didn't feel like the education was a very high level education. I don't know. A lot of my classes were just subpar, I felt. But yeah, it's probably very similar across public and private universities in terms of the education level, but there's a ginormous price difference.
Right. And one great way to really lower the price is through going to a community college for the first couple of years.
Absolutely. 2-2 programs.
Yeah, because then you can transfer to another school, bigger name school, and have all your credits transfer, and the diploma is from that last school that you went to.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think for our generation, the biggest thing with college might not even be people feel they need to go for their careers. It's more of just like a social thing. They don't want to miss out on that social experience of college.
Right, yeah, and it is a great experience. I mean, Ted and I both really enjoyed our time at Dayton, but that shouldn't be the sole reason that you're going to school.
Yeah, is it worth $240,000 of debt if that is what you're going into? I mean, some people have these ridiculous loans. I feel Nick and I were both very fortunate to be able to essentially not pay anywhere near that to attend. I mean, I obviously did ROTC, but I don't know how you make a decision to attend a university with that kind of a price tag without assistance of some kind.
Right. And one way a lot of people lower that price is through scholarships.
Yeah,
absolutely. I know I applied through the University of Dayton for a couple of academic scholarships. I went to some other outside third-party scholarships.
Yeah.
And really all it takes is applying to a lot of them. I mean, I think there's estimated over $100 million worth of scholarships go unclaimed every year, just because people don't apply. And there are scholarships for all different reasons, for having an interest in something or being of a certain demographic. And all you usually have to do is apply, maybe write an essay. And the return on investment is just insane. And a lot of people don't want to do it just because the amount of time it takes. But they really aren't that hard to get because you aren't competing against that many other people.
Absolutely. There's so many. I remember in high school, before I had decided on ROTC, I was writing some of those essays for some of those scholarship opportunities online. There's so many lists of just random scholarships. And you can essentially template like 1 or 2 or 3 different kinds of essays and then just mold them to fit the criteria of that specific scholarship that you're applying to. That's literally just you submitting a paper. And if you just kind of strike out 2 or 3 templates, you can apply to so many of these scholarships that the only requirement really is you submitting a short paper. And it's kind of baffling that more people don't try to take advantage of that.
Right, yeah. And then so another way to try to lower the cost of college is to take AP courses in high school. You learn a lot, but you also get college credit. So if you can come into college with, 12, 15, 18 credits, that's a whole semester worth of college that you won't have to pay for.
Yeah, that's the only reason I was able to do the pre-med and the chemical engineering together, is because I had so many AP credits that I didn't have to take any history classes. I didn't have to take quite a few math classes. There were all these different subjects that I was already covered on, and that put me ahead. And then also in the 2-2 program we were talking about, there was a summer where I took classes in the morning and then worked in the afternoon. And so I was able to get those extra credits from a community college, and that allowed me to take those extra classes during the rest of college.
Yeah, and also just working throughout college is a great way to try to not have to accumulate so much student debt, saving up throughout high school, being able to pay for it in cash rather than taking on a load of debt. It is a lot of time. I think scholarships would be a better route, but working is no doubt a great option to avoid
not to mention
loans.
When you're working during college, it really helps you, I think, structure your time and manage your time a lot better. and you'll probably wind up spending less money on experiences and alcohol if you have that kind of busy schedule. I think our friend and former roommate, Pat Hessian, did a really good job with this and was a really good example of someone that worked really hard throughout college and was also working a job and was just very good at structuring his time and his schedule and was able to make quite a bit of money throughout college as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was probably working 15 hours a week, which with also a full load. I mean, he was a chemical engineer. He has spent a lot of time studying too.
Yep.
And then you can also target certain companies that have tuition assistance. I think UPS does, Starbucks does, and if you work through it with them throughout college, they will pay for some of your tuition. Another option is to join ROTC. That's what Ted did.
Would not recommend.
Why is that? Just too? I mean, it was a lot of time. You spent a lot of time.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely enjoyed it, but it's just one of those things, kind of like we were talking about earlier with the commitment of the loans. ROTC is a different kind of commitment, but like a long-term commitment like that, you are locking yourself into something, and life doesn't always go as planned, and sometimes it doesn't work out being the best, but you do the best with, I guess, what you've locked yourself into, right? So,
yeah. And then you could also be an RA. Yeah. I wasn't an RA. I kind of wish I was. You do miss out on maybe living with your friends, but you often get free housing greatly reduced. You can get credit towards a meal plan to help pay for your food. So that will significantly lower your costs every semester.
That's definitely a good one.
And the last way is just to have your parents pay for the whole thing, if you are fortunate enough to have that.
I guess that is technically an option.
Yeah, so that's what I have for covering student loans.
Trying to avoid them as best you can or reduce them, I guess. I guess another option that may not be on that list would be considering if college is even the right move for you. You know, a lot of career fields don't necessarily require a college degree. There are a lot of good career fields out there, a lot of trades where you can go to a trade school instead of college. You know, college isn't the best move for everyone. Definitely for if you want to be a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant, you probably need to go to college. But there's a lot of other career fields where college isn't required, you know? Right.
And a lot of people who go to college overestimate how much money they'll be making right out of school. You know, a lot of people think they're starting at $80,000+ a year, and that's not the case for a vast majority of majors out there.
Yeah,
there are very
some
few.
Of your STEM majors that might get that, but a lot of other majors are not going to be making that much.
Right. And if you go into a trade 4 or 5 years down the road when other people are graduating, you're already at that salary and you've been making money for 4 or 5 years.
And you don't have the debt.
Right. Yeah. And especially at our age, the time value of money, just it being able to invest sooner is crucial.
The head start that you get with like an IRA or your investments, if you're able to invest earlier, just from the compounding interest and the exponential growth you can experience from that. If you're able to start investing at an earlier age, it's such a huge, huge benefit. On to the weights portion. Today we'll talk about avoiding plateaus through periodization. So kind of a similar topic. You know, we always try to match the theme of the topics here on Weights and Wealth. So as far as programming goes, we went over in an earlier episode, forget which episode it was, but we went over how you want to periodize your programming and go through these different phases. So again, you want to switch out of the different rep ranges. Good recommendation for most people would be switching the rep range that you're lifting in every 4 to 6 weeks to avoid plateaus. And also, I think there's other phases that people don't consider adding into their programming. So if you've never done a unilateral phase where you're doing single arm and single leg exercises, that is an extremely valuable phase to consider implementing into your workouts to help avoid injuries and nagging joint aches and pains. There's a lot of value in doing some unilateral work. If you even just look at like a squat versus a Bulgarian split squat, you know, if you look at humans, like when we walk, we don't do a lot of bilateral movements like a squat where your legs are both in the same plane together. You know, when we're walking, we're in a split stance, and a lot of these split stance movements are extremely valuable, not just for building strength and muscle, but also for avoiding those nagging injuries. Have you ever done like a phase where you really focused on a Bulgarian split squat, or like a barbell rear lunge is my favorite unilateral lower body exercise right now?
Yeah, I didn't really start working in these unilateral exercises until very recently. I know like my squat was stuck for months, and as soon as I started working in lunges, Bulgarian split squats, I do a lot of single leg hamstring curls. I'm a big fan of those. As soon as I started working in these types of exercises, my squat finally started to move upwards again.
The gym I'm at right now has a machine where you're essentially standing and there's a spot for you to put your knee on this pad, and then your other leg does a hamstring curl. So you're basically like standing on the knee that's on this pad and then doing a standing hamstring curl with the other leg. I've never seen this machine anywhere at like another gym before, but I absolutely love it. It's really good. Really good for hamstrings.
And I like the single leg leg press a lot too.
Yeah.
I don't do too many leg press. I like the single leg a lot.
Leg press.
Bilateral. Yeah, that's what I was going for. So I found that to help me out a lot too.
Yeah. What about upper body? What are some of your favorite upper body unilateral movements?
I wouldn't say I do a whole lot for upper body. I do some, I'm not exactly sure what they're called, essentially a shoulder press with a kettlebell.
Yes, do you do like a spiral kind of motion with the kettlebell?
Trying to fully extend all the way at the top.
Yeah, I love that for the shoulders. If you're doing a unilateral, pressing with a kettlebell where it rests on the outside of your wrist and you allow your arm to kind of spiral up in what some would consider to be a more natural movement pattern. And then also a single arm pull down I really like. Sometimes you can get a machine where like a hammer strength kind of machine where it's a plate loaded and you pull down, or you can also use cables for this and get on one knee and then just grab the cable and really pull down and try to work across your body too. Whenever we're trying to train the lats, getting some rotation in the exercise is really valuable just because of the way that the lat kind of spans across half your body, connecting like in your mid back, and then your lat also connects up on your arm here, not on your back. So next we've got diet. So a lot of people will plateau with their goals because their diet stays exactly the same. A lot of women especially will go on these super restrictive 1,000 or 1,200 calorie diets, and it's really bad for them. That's like below the recommended intake for a toddler. I think for a toddler, the recommended calorie intake is like 1,300 calories. And a lot of girls who are trying to lose weight will see either on social media or they'll hire a really bad online coach that will slash their calories to like 1,000 or 1,200 calories to try to get them to lose weight really quickly. And yeah, you might drop weight really quickly, but then a lot of people will stay there and their metabolism will adapt to that calorie level. you see this when you look at studies that have been done on hunter-gatherer tribes. You would think with all their movement that their calorie burn would be like 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 calories a day. But they burn 3,000 calories a day, same as like a normal American that is somewhat sedentary but has a decent metabolism. Your metabolism adapts to your activity level and your calorie intake. So if you stay doing the same thing, your metabolism will adapt to you. So this is one of the biggest things I go through when I train my female clients and their calories are really low. A lot of times the first thing we do is increase their calories, and they don't like the sound of that because they don't want to gain weight. But we need to first increase their metabolism up to a place where then we can cut their calories. So keep in mind that periodizing or phasing your programming also applies to your diet. And when we're planning out long-term your diet and your program, I think a lot of people do really short-term programming and they just plan out like the next couple of weeks. But your diet and also your lifting, you should want to be a sustainable long-term thing. So plan it out long-term. If you know that you're going to be entering into a season of your life where maybe it's going to be a lot harder to stick to something, maybe you just call that your off season and it's like a little break. And then after that off season, maybe you're on vacation and then you have a business trip and then another business trip back to back and you're not going to have gym access. Maybe you just say, all right, I'm going to take that month and just do some like body weight exercises while I'm on the road, and maybe I'll do some running on a treadmill because I never run. Like, you can switch your phases of life here as you have different busy seasons to match your diet and your exercise to aid your lifestyle at that time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's one of the hardest things for a lot of people. You know, life just gets in the way, and it's really hard to stick to what you were doing earlier. So it's definitely okay to change it up.
Yeah, and just because you can't stick to what you were doing at a different period in time doesn't mean you have to give up and stop eating well and stop exercising. Like, there's always something you can do. So whether it means you're switching from like the really intense training you were doing to then doing 10 minutes of bands and like a pair of dumbbells that you have at your house, just 15 minutes of that a day instead of really like going after it on like a 4-day-a-week solid program that you're running at the gym, or whether you switch up your diet and increase calories and go on a little bulk. Like, there's different things you can do. And I think the point I'm trying to make is if you take a long-term approach and plan it out more in advance, you can look at what you have ahead in the coming months and match up both your lifting program and your diet phases to match up with what your lifestyle is going to look like at that point in time.
Yeah, and I know especially when I get really busy with work during tax season, I tend to only be able to get to the gym, really 2, maybe 3 days a week. Mm-hmm. But just while I'm working, I'm fortunate enough to get to work from home. So I'll just do a lot of body weight exercises, a lot of handstand push-ups on the wall. Right. I'll do push-ups. I have a pull-up bar. I can do some pull-ups.
Yeah. And those are great exercises. I mean, a pull-up is one of my favorite exercises for the back, especially if you can like add weight to it at the gym. And I mean, that's a body weight exercise that anyone can do. A lot of my favorite exercises, squats, those are technically a body weight exercise. Of course, I want to load them at the gym, but like there are a lot of exercises that you can switch to doing body weight for a week or two if you don't have access to the gym and you're still staying active. You're still sending somewhat of a muscle building signal to your muscles. So there's a lot of things you can do and that you can change and adapt with. And just because you can't do what you normally do doesn't mean you have to completely fall off. You can just adapt whatever you're doing to what your lifestyle is currently forcing you into.
Yeah.
I think that's all we've got for you today on Weights and Wealth. As we've said in the ends of other episodes, please give us feedback and let us know how we're doing with this whole new podcast thing. And also give us topics you want to learn about, and we will be sure to do episodes on those topics and bring that information to you in this short, long form, 30-minute episode thing we've got running here right now.
Yep. And if you have any questions about anything that we talked about today, our email is info@weightsandwealth.com.
Yes. Yep. We can always answer any questions you've got. We appreciate the communication that we're getting through social media, so keep it up. Hit us with those questions in the DMs or our email, and be sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok,
YouTube,
whatever we got. Yeah, YouTube. Our goal is to start coming out with other content on our other YouTube channels that's different from just like a normal podcast, but do more extra content as well.
So stay tuned for that.
Yes. And then I think next week we have our book club coming out for the first time. We'll have a monthly book club here at Weights and Wealth where we introduce a weights book and a wealth book each month. So make sure you check into our next episode to join the book club.
Should be some exciting stuff.
All right. Thanks, guys.